What's good? It's Woog. The Jake Paul saga continues. We have Jake Paul, 6 wins and 0 losses, taking on Tommy Fury, 8 wins and 0 losses. This fight has been in the making for some time now. They've had 2 different instances where they had to cancel the fight. Both times it was due to Tommy Fury having to pull out of the fight. First time via injury, and the second time because he reportedly could not gain entry into the US for the fight. And the first time Tommy Fury pulled out of the fight, he was replaced by Tyron Woodley, which would be the second time Jake Paul would fight Tyron Woodley. That's the one that resulted in the devastating 6-round knockout. And then the second time Tommy Fury withdrew from the Jake Paul fight, they tried to replace him with Hasim Rahman, but after agreeing to a weight, Rahman made it clear he couldn't make that weight. They couldn't come to any sort of a resolution or agreement, ended up canceling the whole event. So there was no replacement that ended up working out for the second time Tommy Fury pulled out of the fight. But it was a few months after that Jake Paul then fought Anderson the Spider Silva, easily the most difficult matchup Jake Paul has had to deal with, and he ended up beating the Spider, the legendary, arguably the greatest striker in MMA history, and my number 2. Some have him at number 1, some might have him at number 3, but a top 3 all-time mixed martial artist, Anderson Silva. But yeah, Jake Paul beat Anderson Silva via unanimous decision, and that was an 8-rounder. And yes, that does sound pretty crazy that Jake Paul beat Anderson Silva, but hell, the idea of Jake Paul beating up on Tyron Woodley and knocking him out cold sounded unfathomable just 3 years ago. But how opinions change and perceptions change over a short period of time. I mean, it seems like it was a long time ago now that we were saying, oh my God, Jake Paul just knocked out former NBA player Nate Robinson. And then, oh my God, Jake Paul just knocked out Ben Askren, former mixed martial artist, former Bellator and one champion. Although not a striker, notoriously not a striker, but just the fact that this guy was a professional fighter who, went a few rounds in the stand-up with Damian Maia, who ended up beating Robbie Lawler. Ben Askren was a legit fighter in mixed martial arts. So I feel like they did a very good job at incrementally increasing the level of opposition for Jake Paul, where they started off at YouTuber Anderson Silva, which after Jake Paul's 3rd or 4th fight, I was saying, hey, maybe we need to back up on Anderson Silva and start putting some respect on his name. That became abundantly clear at the time that Jake Paul knocked Nate Robinson out, that, hey, look, I don't know if he's got all the skills, but this guy packs one hell of a right hand, right? But yeah, it seems like it was a long time ago that we saw these first incremental step-ups for Jake Paul, to where, by the time you get to Tyron Woodley, playtime is over. Tyron Woodley, yes, he was a mixed martial artist and not a boxer, and he was a wrestler by trade, but he was one of the better striking mixed martial artists in his division. When he stopped Darren Till, remember, he dropped Darren Till with the right hand, and that's how he then ended up submitting Darren Till. It started off with the stand-up knockdown. Same thing with when Tyron Woodley earned the belt against Robbie Lawler. He dropped him, stopped him with the hands. So every step along the way has been more and more impressive for Jake Paul. Like, I look at, the first fight against Woodley where Jake Paul won via decision, close, split decision against Woodley. That was a tough one. Jake Paul kind of got rocked in the middle rounds. It was arguably a knockdown if you think that the ropes caught him. But I looked at him fighting an 8-round split decision win over Woodley as being more impressive than knocking out Ben Askren or Nate Robinson and Anderson Silva. So yes, every step along the way has been more and more impressive. And then obviously when you get to the knockout of Tyron Woodley and then beating Anderson Silva, who was the first guy Jake fought who was nearly his size. They were roughly the same size. So there were a lot of reasons to think that no, the fun stops here. Anderson Silva is going to beat Jake Paul, but Jake Paul outdid himself again, winning via unanimous decision over the Spider and dropping him in the 8th round. So this against Tommy Fury is going to be Jake Paul's first time fighting an actual professional boxer, even though Anderson Silva has had a couple boxing fights before and after his MMA career, but Tommy Fury is a boxer by trade, as was Hasim Rahman Jr. Like, I looked at that as being, hey, if it wasn't for this weight clause, I would pick Hasim Rahman Jr. to beat Jake Paul if he didn't have to, you know, shed an extra 15, 20 pounds and fight at a weight that he had not competed in. I looked at that as being the red flag, and that's why I did pick Jake Paul to win via decision against Hasim Rahman Jr. That was before the fight got canceled, obviously. But now he's going to be fighting Tommy Fury, who is 8-0. He's a good puncher. I wouldn't say he's a great puncher. I would say that he throws hard. I'm not sure if he hits hard, if that makes any sense. He looks like he's throwing a laser with that right hand. Both of these guys, by the way, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, are pretty right hand heavy. But out of Tommy Fury's 8 wins, 4 have come via knockout. And it's not like he's fighting, you know, elite or near elite fighters. Usually if somebody is going to have a good professional career, they usually get, you know, a lot of stoppages early in the career. So the fact that Tommy Fury, even at this stage, has a 50% knockout ratio, that tells me that he's not like a devastating puncher, but it looks like he's throwing with some oomph. You know what I mean? He is putting some weight behind that right hand. And again, he likes to throw it. But for instance, if it was Jake Paul who would have fought Anthony Taylor is the guy who we just saw lose on one of those DAZN and MF cards. If it was Jake Paul fighting Anthony Taylor instead of Tommy Fury, who ended up winning a 4-round unanimous decision over Taylor, I think that Jake Paul would have knocked Taylor out. Like, I don't think Anthony Taylor would have gone the full 4 with Jake Paul. By the way, that Tommy Fury versus Anthony Taylor fight was on the Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley undercard, the first one. But yeah, Tommy Fury, for all intents and purposes, seems to be a pretty proficient boxer. Again, he's 8-0. It's not like he's got like a win some, lose some type of record. But I do think that this might be a step up for both fighters here. Even Jake Paul, who has fought Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, again, was 47 years old. Tommy Fury, if nothing else, is a pretty young, big and strong dude. So, and Tommy Fury, by the way, he is Tyson Fury's half brother, but it's kind of funny. You have a lot of people wondering, like, how Fury is Tommy Fury. You know what I mean? Like, Tyson Fury has a cousin, Hughie Fury, who's had a very good boxing career and has fought guys like Alexander Povetkin, Kubrat Pulev, Joseph Parker. Tommy Fury is kind of a newcomer to the sport. He was sort of a reality star. So I don't know if boxing is in his DNA in the same way that it's in Tyson Fury and Hughie Fury's DNA, where they just live that lifestyle in and out. But in sizing up Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury, you know, it seems like it's almost too logical to say, okay, when Jake Paul finally fights a boxer, not only a boxer, but a boxer his size. So it's not like he's fighting 170-pounder Tyron Woodley or 170-pounder Ben Askren. Tommy Fury is at least as big as Jake Paul and has more professional boxing fights. But if you look at the duration, even the scheduled duration of the Tommy Fury fights, he's been fighting all 6-rounders and 4-rounders, and only one of those 6-rounders went the entire 6 rounds, and then the 2 fights that he had before that went the entire 4 rounds. Jake Paul, yes, it was against Tyron Woodley, but has gone the full 8-round distance, and then he went 8 rounds against Anderson Silva, and when he knocked Tyron Woodley out cold, he knocked him out in the 6th round in an 8-round fight. So Jake Paul actually has longer fight experience, not more fights, but he's gone more rounds per fight. So look, I think that this fight is largely going to come down to who has established and learned the best jab and head movement in these guys' young careers. Who's going to be the person who looks like they're stiff and just getting peppered with the jab and kind of lined up for a right hand? Because I kind of think that after the first 3 or 4 rounds, these guys are gonna somewhat be out of range from each other's right hands. Like, I think that this is gonna kind of turn into a kind of a slog of a fight. Like, I don't think it's gonna be high intensity throughout the entire 8, even though I have to say, Jake Paul did, you know, finish strong against Anderson Silva. Again, he knocked him down and he arguably won the round before the 8th round. So I think that Jake Paul actually showed better round over round cardio in the Silva fight than he did against Tyron Woodley in the first and second fight, where there were more lulls in the action for Jake Paul. So is Jake Paul gonna win the jab battle against Tommy Fury here? Look, I think that Jake Paul has had a very good improving jab. Fight over fight, I feel like I could see the improvement, and I see that he jabs to the body pretty effectively as well. Now, one of the Achilles heels I've seen from Jake Paul is that when you get in close, like Anderson Silva did, he doesn't work super well in the inside. He tends to want to tie up and not let the phone booth style fight occur. If Tommy Fury has been working on his inside game, that could be an opportunity for Fury. I haven't seen too much of that in the footage that I've seen of Tommy Fury, but if he has developed a pretty strong inside game, there might be some opportunity there to hit, Jake Paul with some uppercuts and to just go to the body. Now, again, Jake Paul will mix up the jab high and low, and he does have a laser of a right hand. I know that Jake Paul, again, hits hard. Not sure how hard Tommy Fury hits. I think that the punching power advantage goes to Jake Paul, but again, you can't really be sure because of who Jake Paul has fought. We don't really have the boxing comparables or references to see, it's not like Jake Paul's knocked down Bout Jack, right? So we don't know what kind of a power puncher he is against other boxers. But I do tend to think that he hits harder than Tommy Fury. And it should be noted, Tommy Fury is under a lot of pressure right now. He's the one who's got the last name Fury, who's got the brother and the cousin and has the fighting family. Tyson Fury said, hey, don't bother coming back from Saudi Arabia if you don't pick up the win here. It would be pretty embarrassing for Tommy Fury to lose this one. Yes, he still gets paid well, so it's like, who's laughing all the way to the bank? But just in terms of your boxing reputation and boxing credibility, yes, Jake Paul has, exceeded our expectations over the past couple years, but there is still some sense of hey, this is a YouTuber turned boxer at the end of the day, albeit a very talented, athletic, and a pretty good one, who, by the way, has been working his butt off to get better. You could tell that he's been super dedicated to the craft, and he's been carrying the promotions. He's been running his business and marketing through social media. He's been just doing all kinds of things, and it's crazy to see all cylinders clicking in the way that it has. It's almost, I'm just thinking, the party's got to end sometime, right? There's no way that this train could continue running in the way that it has. It's a lot for one man to carry. So these guys are both under a lot of pressure, but I feel like Jake Paul is still playing with house money. You know what I mean? He's already exceeded everybody's expectations. Even the biggest doubters and naysayers are all, okay, he beat Anderson Silva. And so now if he beats Tommy Fury, it's like, then what, But I was tempted to go Tommy Fury in this one because, again, he is arguably the more established boxer. He's a big, strong dude, and just from the footage I've seen, he's pretty good. Yes, Anthony Taylor did go the full 4 rounds with him, but he seems to throw with pretty quick regularity, and again, he likes to let that right hand fly. He's not the most accurate with that right hand, but he does let it go. I tend to think that if he's worried about a counter from Jake Paul, he might keep that one in the holster more than he's used to. So I was going to go Tommy Fury, but then when I was thinking about how I've seen Jake Paul kind of dig deep and get that 6-round knockout over Tyron Woodley in a fight that was not a fun fight to watch. It was kind of a tough fight to score and a pretty uneventful fight before that devastating knockout. But again, Jake Paul dug deep and threw, the right hand and set it up with looking low and going low, looking low, and then throwing high. So he does also have some cleverness to his game. Look, I'm going to go Jake Paul here. I'm going to go Jake Paul, but I'm going to go via decision. I think this one is going to go the full 8 rounds. I think Tommy Fury's going to make a pretty solid accounting of himself. It's hard to really try to scope what this one is going to look like. Will Tommy Fury be kind of spooked into fighting a more conservative style where he's allowing Jake Paul to win rounds behind a jab? If that's the case and Jake Paul just outboxes him without knocking him down, or there being some sort of a firefight, that would almost be more embarrassing than mixing it up and losing in a brawl style fight, right? I don't know, that's arguable too, but I'm gonna go Jake Paul via decision on this one. I think that he's gonna show that he's got the better jab. it's hard to say with the head movement. I haven't loved Jake Paul's head movement. Like Anderson Silva was a very competitive fight, and Silva was having his moments, won a few rounds, and was hitting Jake Paul with an assortment of different punches. But I think that Silva is probably a more creative puncher than Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury, you see a few of the punches he throws and you more or less feel, okay, I've seen what this guy's arsenal is. So we'll see if he's got new tricks, but it's just hard to, I don't see Tommy Fury winning with the repertoire that I've seen him bring to the table. I do think that this is going to be a competitive fight. I think that he could hurt Jake Paul if he lets his hands go. The question is, how much will he let his hands go, and who's going to be throwing the more accurate punches? Who's got the more sophisticated game at this point of their development? I'm going to say slight edge to the guy I've seen working out with, BJ Flores and his whole camp over the past few years, Jake Paul. Yeah, so I'm taking Jake Paul via decision, and the Jake Paul saga continues. But yeah, let me know what you think about Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury in the comments. And if Jake Paul does get past Tommy Fury in this fight, who do you match him up with next? Because you still don't go the legit, like you don't go with a known boxer. You still don't go there because Tommy Fury really isn't that yet, right? I don't know who you match Jake Paul up with, because this is another one of the cases where it's a good mix of name and then increase opponent quality. So you kind of get both here with Tommy Fury, and he's got the name because of his reality show reputation and being, related to Tyson and Huey Fury. So this is another one of those, lightning in a bottle opponent scenarios. I just don't know where you pivot to from here. I don't think you go Nate Diaz, because at this point, I don't think Nate Diaz can box competitively with Jake Paul. I think that Jake Paul has shown enough, boxing game to where anybody who's been watching his development and knows Nate Diaz and his fight style, and he's a relatively good boxer by MMA standards, but he's got nothing for Jake Paul. He's got good cardio, but no, Jake Paul wins that and probably hurts Nate Diaz. Plus, he's bigger than Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz fought at 155, sometimes at 170. So I don't think you go there. But let me know where you think you do go if, again, Jake Paul is to get past Tommy Fury. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.